The interesting thing about gaming is it's weird because it's a creative pursuit, and and it can be an art, I think, but at the same time it's essentially still more than anything else seen as a financial wing of the entertainment industry. And maybe that's something that we could do something, and maybe Kickstart will change that. I mean, that's the one thing I find not depressing but surprising about games is there isn't the equivalent in the gaming world of indie films. You know, where's the Lena Dunham game right now? Where are the games that are being made by, even games that you might not want to see, but where's the kind of Hurt Locker of the shoot-'em-up game? There isn't one. You know, what we do tend to get are the blockbusters, and it is very much financially fueled. I don't think most games are created because they're serving some artistic vision or some noble idea. What they are there is to make money. I mean, that's what most games are made for. It has to be said. You could say it about films, you could say about some films. And to entertain people, and it doesn't mean necessarily the two cannot occupy the same project. It doesn't mean they can't be the same two things. But ultimately, I don't think that you're worried about, you know, the artistic purity of the Football Manager game, and I don't mean to be disrespectful. You want it to be a great game.
We're not trying to make art, we're trying to make entertainment.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying anything negative here.
There are some people who are trying to make art.
And there are indeed, and those people maybe, and if you're trying to make something which is purely, you really want to make a statement which is a personal statement, then of course you shouldn't listen to anyone else. You go and see a Batman movie, you want it to tick certain boxes. And if it doesn't, it's a bad Batman film. You go and see a Bond movie, and even though the new one is overrated, but even though the new one, people like it because it seemed to have a little more depth and character than some of the previous ones, still it had to deliver certain elements. There needs to be a certain amount of sex and a certain amount of violence and a certain amount of brutality. If you don't deliver that, quite rightly, the Bond audience are going to feel you've shortchanged them. So I think maybe what we're looking at, though, is a kind of, we're on the cusp of the gaming industry changing, as most media is changing and most entertainment is changing, partly because you've got kind of like, you know, micro-funding and small funding coming from outside, and you've got small audiences who are saying they want different games. Maybe we are on the verge of an explosion, so we will see a much broader range of this kind of entertainment.
Well, and just to come in on that, Jedward, you'll be pleased to know, obviously have a point to make here. We think games are like art. What game do you think is the equivalent, capitalised, don't know why, of the Mona Lisa, Lisa not capitalised, of the gaming world?
I'd like to ask Jedward a question. I'd like to ask Jedward whether their new single... I want to ask them whether their new single is actually coming out at the same time that Jonathan's new series starts, because they seem to be stalking him at the moment on Twitter.
I'll have Jedward on. I love Jedward. I mean, they're great fun. You certainly wouldn't want to get trapped in a lift with them. But they're great, you know. They're happy young people who bounce around the room, you know. It's like,
they just need better punctuation.
But if let's take their question seriously. What is the Mona Lisa?
There doesn't need to be a Mona Lisa equivalent, because we make video games. It's a form of entertainment, in the same way as musicians make music, and that people who make films make films.
You can't compare, no disrespect to Jedward, but you wouldn't compare Nick Drake to Jedward. You know, I think there was a different driving force between his urge to communicate what was going on inside his body and their desire to jump around on stage in shoes with wings on them.
I wouldn't compare Nick Drake to the Mona Lisa either.
No, I think you can compare Nick Drake to the Mona Lisa. I think you can compare some artists who actually have a desire to communicate over and above anything else. So and these are artists who just do stuff, you know.
There was a game back in '97 called Myst. That probably was most like the Mona Lisa.
It's a beautiful game.
So
now, Jedward, go to bed.
So Jedward, go.